What's up? Welcome to the Alex Olinger podcast. I had a long day at work today, mainly because there was nothing to do. I work at a investment firm, and I make coffee there. And I'm not a barista. I just make drip coffee and put it out on the floors. So I don't really make any specialty drinks. I push a button. I take out a coffee bag and I open it. It's a plastic bag that I open and I put it in the coffee container, the plastic thing with the handle. It's sort of like a bucket with a handle, and I put that above the drip coffee. What's it? A drip coffee? It's a vase, a vase, a a big. It's a thermos, really, with a spout at the top, and I just push a button, and hot water pours through it, and it fills up the coffee thermos. And I do that most of the day. I'll go and refill it, and I'll clean up, and I'll fill the drinks up with fresh Waterloos at my job. That's what I do. And I do that most of the day. And on Mondays and Fridays, none of the investment people, the full-time employees that are not contracted to work there, none of them are actually in the building except for like 30 people. So it goes from about 500 people to 30, and, when people are done with their coffee, they're done with it. So what did I do today? I locked myself in the bathroom stall and played Pokemon on a Nintendo DS that I brought to work in my pocket. And I gotta say, it wasn't a bad day. It was a long day. The Nintendo DS ran out of battery. That's how much Pokemon I played at 33 years old. Depending on who you are, that's either an awesome thing or that's a really sad thing. I'd say if you're more, in the Jordan Peterson crowd, I'm sure I do a lot of shit during my day. I do a lot of things that, if Jordan Peterson heard about it, he'd, in his Canadian accent, he'd tell me he'd say, no, you can't do that. You can't just play Pokemon in the bathroom. He would somehow, this is how he works. He would somehow take that fact and make it into this extremely complicated and open-ended subject somehow, and then sort of blame me for the fascist downfall of America because I played Pokemon Go in the bathroom at my job that I couldn't leave, and they won't let me sit down and write at or read a book openly. So somehow his logic is like, even at something that minuscule, he'll take it and attribute it to the rise of like communism in the West. That's what I think a lot of those guys do. I think a lot of those guys, I think they are right some of the time. They are correct. But they constantly have to be pumping out content. And it's not content like this is, which is just a guy talking for like maybe 14 viewers and just like bullshitting away 30 minutes, so you don't have to sit with yourself. It's like the content that people expect some sort of like deep conversation and revelatory conclusions from every conversation in a way. And there's no way you can keep up with that without some amount of horse shit coming out of your mouth. I mean, I almost like feel for the guy because he's got kind of this like massive following now, and a lot of people are putting like an intellectual responsibility on him because maybe they don't want to like think of stuff themselves. And there's a lot of like losers, or like people, middle of the line people, or maybe even successful people that look to him for guidance, and then people on the internet shit on him. They're like, he doesn't have an answer to all of these things. And it's like, how could you really? I mean, you want the guy to like what, deconstruct the Bible in 3 hours and come up with like a solid point every time? No, he's not. Sometimes he's going to sit down in an interview, dress like Willy Wonka's attorney, and he's just going to ask questions to the questions you asked him and create more questions. And you're going to just leave feeling like you listened to a lot, and it's not going to be a lot. And you know what, man? Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's like not the end of the world. I wouldn't say listen to it all day. You know, maybe like once a month is like good to sit down with one of his like 3 hour long debates with Richard Dawkins. But like on his own, let the guy be convoluted. People criticize him. They're like, oh, he's just making word salads. It's like salad is good for you. Salad can be delicious. It can also be fun. It was only 3 hours of your day, you know? Richard Dawkins doesn't make word salads because if Richard Dawkins' theories were food, it'd be him punching a sandwich and calling it stupid. That's what it would be. That's what Richard Dawkins really is, just him criticizing macaroni for not being intelligent enough, you know? And I don't think that's fair. Sometimes you want a little poetry and a little bit of horse shit in your intellectualism to spice it up a little and give you questions. You know, sometimes it's good to have people on the other side. I don't really hate a lot of these right-wing people. I think they're fine on their own, which a lot of people would disagree with. What I don't think it's fine and who I do hate are all these tech overlords and social media people who invented algorithms on purpose to get you addicted and to only show you right-wing narrative hysterical shit all day to get you dragged further and further into this hole and get you addicted to that lifestyle of consuming this thing so that you can never get out, and it warps your mindset of the world. And it happens on the other side too. But let Jordan Peterson, you know, wear bow ties. Let him wear sneakers with a suit while he talks about how Moses paved the way for NASA to land on the moon, which was the real title of one of his videos. And I think that's one of the most insane fucking things I've ever heard. But that doesn't mean, you know what I mean? That doesn't mean he can't do it. You know? The same thing with like some of the left-wing people. Let Richard Dawkins be pretentious. Everybody hates on him, but sometimes you need a hard-nosed, pretentious guy to be like, hey, man, you stop fucking talking about dragons and gold here. People need Medicare. We need to research cancer. Could somebody do science one fucking time here, you know? We need that guy. We kind of need everybody to work as a society. What we don't need is the way that we have to listen to them. That's what we don't need. The way that we have to deal with and ingest everybody else is the wrong way to do it, and Mark Zuckerberg should have to answer for that. So should Elon for buying his company, and whoever the Peter Thiel or whoever that psycho is, he's kind of in the background, you know, the whoever runs Reddit and Blue Sky, they all need to like answer for this shit. The makers of YouTube, all these tech people need to answer for this because they've changed the way we've consumed people. I would love to bump into Jordan Peterson at a college lecture in the 70s. You know, he'd be smoking a cigarette. Hopefully he'd be dressed like a hippie. I'd love to see hippie Jordan Peterson. You know, I'd love to see that and then go to a bar and immediately forget what he said 3 hours later. I think that would be the healthy way to ingest his philosophy. You know? Joe Rogan is a guy you could sit down with and smoke weed with, have a conversation about aliens in flat earth and like how NASA isn't real. That rocks like once a month at your buddy's house when there's like black lights on the wall and you went to that one party and they had like a bong with a gas mask on it. That's like fun in that amount of time. What's not fun is seeing his fucking face every time I open my phone when I shit. That is an awful experience, you know? And who's responsible for that? The people I previously mentioned. They're responsible for that. They're really responsible for a lot of the terrible things that's happening in America right now. They really are. And that's like an opening rant. Why did I have a long day at work? Oh, it was Pokemon. Also, I just watched that movie Sinners, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I feel like every time I don't enjoy a movie that stars black people, I get called and looked at like I'm racist. And there is like, can I just not like things that have black people in it without people thinking it's because there's black people in it? Like, I didn't like Black Panther because I don't like superhero movies. I don't feel like that's like a healthy thing for adults to be like really obsessed with. And I personally don't like superhero movies. It wasn't because it was a black superhero. I'm not sitting out here like excited for Superman. I think Thor should be shot back into space and that hammer should be shoved up his ass. I don't like that guy. I don't like how he wears underpants when he could wear a suit. I don't like how like the dialogue is corny and everybody's like, yeah, but like black people made this. And I'm like, but it's bad and I don't care. And I feel like that's not racist. I feel like that's the most honest I could be about the movie, which is the least racist thing you could say. I just don't like superheroes, man. I find them corny. I find them upsetting, whatever race they are. I especially don't like Chinese superheroes because they're Chinese. And that's not racist. That's just a fact about me. That's a joke. Don't clip that. That is a joke. That's definitely a joke. No, I wouldn't even care if it was a Chinese superhero. It would be annoying to see because it's a superhero. And those movies lack dialogue and character. They lack everything that makes a movie great. That's what happens in those movies, and they fucking suck. And I shouldn't have to feel bad about that, and I shouldn't have to feel like I have to hold back my opinions on that. And that's just how I feel about it, okay? That's how I feel. Spoiler alert coming, because I really do want to talk about this movie. I don't want to ruin it for everybody. But, you know, I don't do vampires. And I realize this about myself. I definitely don't do white vampires. I just don't. Like, actually, kind of the black vampires in the movie were, like, chilling. When they were talking to people, they were, like, kind of cool. I don't know what it was. I think most black people are cooler in general, but that didn't mean that the white vampires had to be that uncool. You know, they're super sassy. They talk in riddles. And you know, I know it's 1930s Mississippi, but like, did they need to show up with a banjo like that? Did you have to make it that stereotypical and on the nose? And when they answered their door, did they have to answer it with a shotgun with like beady little eyes? You know, they couldn't get good haircuts. Everybody else looked sexy, except for the white vampires. You picked like unhealthy people. You put the lady, for some reason, like everybody else is dressed like super hot with the best clothes. Even like the people that didn't have a lot of money had a lot of like really fancy clothes on. And for some reason, the white vampires, this chick just had on this like Mormon looking dress. And you could just tell, you know, she says the N-word when she eats apple pie. It was a bad vibe. And it felt like kind of stereotypical. And, you know, maybe that's historically accurate. Maybe definitely white people were not cool back then. But it felt like a caricature of that type of white person. And it felt like they had like no depth whatsoever. They just existed to be the devil. Hey, and maybe that's how black people feel about us. And I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but just watching it, as soon as they were vampires, it just lost me. The thing with the clan, how he shoots them all up at the end, that was fucking sick, man. But the vampire thing, is there just not like a normal vampire that's just like, hey, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm going to eat your face and I'm going to go back to hell because I got like work I got to catch up on. We're just going to do this straight up and down. I'll let you know up front. I don't like black people. That's why I'm going to eat your face. And I want you to listen to bad bluegrass because I'm possessed by the devil. I'm a normal vampire. Instead they got to bring him up in this movie with like gold coins and they're singing songs and they're like speaking in like old English and riddles. Like, I'd like to feast on thine flesh. And no, I don't, they're trying to do, and they're all like trying to trick people to let them in the building. And they're not like good at tricking people. It's very transparent that something's wrong with these people when they're possessed and they're trying to not act possessed. I don't know. Michael B. Jordan, I guess they made 2 of him with computer CGI or whatever. That was sick. He was cool. The blues music was awesome. The music was good. I honestly, like, the first half of the movie, I was super excited. I thought they were going to have a party and the Klan was going to show up and they were going to have to, like, kill all of those fucking assholes. And I thought it was going to be a really cool movie. And then it got, like, supernatural. And they tried to do comedic relief. And it was kind of predictable. I'm just being a bummer right now. I'm not trying to be a bummer, but it also, everybody I know is like blown away that this was not, like I didn't like fall on my fucking face after I watched this movie. And can I just not like a thing without having to ruin everybody's day? That's another thing nowadays is like, can I just have a disagreement? I'll give you like a good movie about black people beating the shit out of white people, Django Unchained. That's one of my favorite movies ever. When he rolls up on the horse, dressed up in the suit, they go to the Klan rally and like just beat the shit out. I thought that was great. And you know what that movie didn't have that Sinners had was vampires. Yeah, I don't know, fuck it. Dude, black vampires, that seems sick. This movie, white vampires, I'm not into. Also, why is it always has to be the white dude that's like the bad guy in a black movie. And I've given the historical context, it makes sense, but could there be like a mean Chinese guy one time? In like a white dude that's like, dude, that Chinese guy is kind of being a dick. Could you stop? And he's like, no. I'm very mad at the black people. I'm very mad at the black race. And they're like, you don't even talk like that, Ted. I know you from work. Ted. He's like, when I'm being a racist, I talk with an accent, yeah. Something like that. Would that be cool? That's how I feel. Is I felt like I had to whisper that alone in my apartment. That's what this movie is doing to me psychologically. Not even the movie, but really the backlash that I fear from having an opinion on this movie. Forget what I said about movies with Chinese people earlier. But it is what it is. Anyways, Sinners. I'd say it was mid. It was shot really well. The acting actually was decent, except for the corny-ass racist white people. The music was really good. The sound was good. The special effects weren't bad either, It just, vampires to me, anytime there's a vampire in a movie and it's not some like artistic film. I mean, if there's a vampire in a movie, it's got to be a really, really good movie to get me into it. If it's not, dude, you're getting 3 stars max just for bringing vampires into the equation. It always feels like movies now have to have like some sort of gimmick. Like there's this new A24 movie coming out with a it's like about this family that finds the only unicorn ever, and they're like, unicorns are real, and it just seems weird and kind of forced and just too quirky. You know, it seems like art these days, like the purpose of it is to be like, look at how unique it is. Look, we've never done this before. And it's like, make something traditional, like a human interest story with great dialogue again. Bring back something, I don't know, bring back some of the 90s things. More like a Good Will Hunting style movie, you know, where you got like a good character interest. All the characters are relatively normal. They go through some shit, and you get to see that human interaction. Why has it always got to be some weird shit? Why does The Last of Us 2 in season 2 have to have the most annoying main character of all time? Why is that? Here we go again. Now I'm on another thing where people are going to accuse me of being homophobic just because I don't like the main character in The Last of Us season 2. I felt like she was annoying, and quite frankly, I don't like 19-year-olds, and she was the worst of them. She had a bad attitude. It's the apocalypse, lady. Everybody has people that died. It doesn't mean you get to take it out on everybody around you and have a bad fucking attitude and get a forearm tattoo and act like you're the only one that gets to have a chip on their shoulder. Really annoying. And the way she was behaving was dangerous, quite frankly, and disrespectful, and I didn't like it. And I don't understand how everybody else in the apocalypse, after blowing off literally other humans' heads to stay alive, somebody didn't uppercut this girl and be like, shut up. And no, I'm not saying a man should do it. Another lady, like a good old-fashioned pre-apocalypse, like McDonald's-style ratchet fight should have taken place, you know? Someone should have just fought this young woman, you know? Somebody of her size and stature and of the same gender should have fought her and been like, you need to stop endangering everybody because you just don't want to be told what to do. Really annoying. And it's not about being a lesbian, because the other chick she's with, super cool, has great ideas. Actually, the main character, what really annoyed me about her is she acts like she's the one that's solving all these problems. In every episode almost every episode, somebody else is keeping her alive and getting her out of shit. Very annoying. Some people online was like, she's not hot enough, and that's weird, and that's upsetting, and that's gross, and you're really missing the point of why she's annoying by bringing her attractiveness into this. And that, to me, that's a low blow. It's the apocalypse. You don't get to really pick who's pretty and who's not. It's who lives on. You know, there's enough people that have died to where she's going from 4 to a 7 easily. You know, you're sitting in America now watching from your apartment with all your pornography and your Instagram hoes on your phone, and you're looking at this girl and you're criticizing her unfairly. All right? It's not what her face looks like. It's what's in her soul. And what's in her soul is a bad attitude that really, quite frankly, was put up with way too much by the other people around her. And whoever wrote that seemed to be like getting off on it or something. Something should have happened to her. Just a really annoying ass character. Really upset me. Anyways, what did I do this week? Yeah, I watched Sinners. I did a couple comedy gigs. Frustratingly, somebody at the last gig at Tom's didn't show up. And that's Not only did they not show up for the gig, they texted me halfway through to ask when they needed to go up. And it was like, dude, you're an adult. You've known about this for a long time. That's crazy. It's absolutely insane that somebody around 40 years of age with 2 weeks of planning couldn't schedule a 7 p.m. gig and an 8 p.m. gig correctly and look up where the venue is and not like figured out what the traffic cycle is like. It really is just like mind-boggling how low of a bar like comedians will set sometimes in their personal lives. And yeah, I am fucking ripping on this guy because it's not cool. We had to have one comic go for 30 minutes. Thankfully she could. People paid to see it. Show up on time, man. It's not that fucking hard. It's not that hard to be decent. You know, no one's really... This is the thing, is like, I don't think anybody really is asking for that much out of people. At least nobody that I know. Like, you could be the biggest bag of shit and eat 20 Hot Pockets and rub one out for 3 hours when you got home. You don't even have to clean up your own apartment. But when it comes to everybody else, for the love of God, don't even show up. That's fine too. Just let people know that you can't make it before 15 minutes before you're supposed to be there. The day of. You know? Be semi-responsible. What am I talking about, man? This is rambling at this point, but I'm going to have to put like a spoiler alert in this for the 14 people that, you know, maybe watch this. And I don't know how long this has been since I started recording this. I know it's about 5:06, and I got to put this thing out because I forgot to put it out this morning. Or I forgot to even do one yesterday. You know, the day slipped by. That's what happened. I lost track of time. And I don't want to be that guy. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to hear this if they want to. So I'm going to cut this thing off, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I would say genuinely go watch Sinners and make up your own opinion. And I swear on my life, I swear it's about the vampires, okay? I swear I didn't like the movie that black people were in because of the vampires and not because there was black people in it. Okay? I promise you. I swear, everybody. I promise. All right, have a nice day.